Everyone thinks the next global flashpoint is Europe or Taiwan. They're looking in the wrong place. Right now, a country is being cornered without a single shot fired. No invasion, no war, just lines moving on maps, ships getting closer, and choices disappearing. China isn't attacking. The US isn't helping for free. The middle ground is being erased, quietly. Somewhere far away, in a capital you've never visited, lines are being drawn across the ocean, lines that cut closer to your shores than theirs. And those lines decide who fishes, who drills, who patrols, and ultimately, who belongs. This isn't a future scenario. This is the present reality of the Philippines. To understand why this country now sits at the center of a looming global confrontation, you have to begin with something cold, simple, and merciless: geography. The Philippine archipelago stretches like a broken chain across the western Pacific. More than 7,000 islands scattered over 1,000 miles of ocean. Beautiful, strategic, exposed. Luzon, home to Manila and tens of millions of people, sits alarmingly close to contested waters. Palawan runs like a narrow bridge toward distant reefs and shoals that now appear nightly on military briefings. For China, this same body of water is something else entirely. It is a protective moat, a forward shield, a buffer zone meant to push potential adversaries as far from its coast as possible. For the United States, it is a corridor, a highway connecting alliances from Japan to Australia, from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean. One sea. 3 incompatible visions. That contradiction is not theoretical. It has consequences measured in steel hulls. That moment shattered a dangerous illusion that legal norms alone could restrain raw power. It forced the Philippines into a realization many nations tried desperately to avoid. When law fails, only leverage remains. And leverage in this region comes in only 2 forms: force or alignment. For decades, the Philippines tried to delay that choice. It balanced, it hedged. It spoke softly while keeping doors open to both Washington and Beijing. This strategy wasn't naive, it was survival, but the world around it hardened. Artificial islands rose from the sea, bristling with radar and runways. Naval patrols turned into constant presence. What once felt like pressure began to feel like enclosure. The space to maneuver shrank. The relationship between the 2 countries is layered with contradiction, liberation and occupation, brotherhood and resentment, shared wars and uneasy separations. After the Cold War, Manila made a bold declaration of independence. American bases closed, foreign troops departed, sovereignty felt reclaimed. But sovereignty without security is fragile. As pressure in the western seas intensified, old agreements regained new meaning. Defense treaties, once written in cautious language, suddenly mattered again, and ambiguity, once useful, became dangerous, because ambiguity invites testing. Every time a Philippine vessel was blocked, every resupply mission harassed, a silent question echoed, would anyone respond if this escalated? Washington eventually answered, not subtly, not gradually, but unmistakably. The United States clarified that any attack on Philippine forces, anywhere in contested waters, would trigger mutual defense obligations. It wasn't a promise meant for public reassurance. It was a warning designed for adversaries. Then came the logistics. Access agreements expanded. American forces rotated through new locations. Training intensified. Exercises grew larger, more complex, more realistic. Some of these sites faced west, toward contested reefs. Others faced north, toward Taiwan. That detail mattered, because it signaled something profound. The Philippines was no longer just being defended. It was being integrated. Integration brings deterrence, but it also brings risk. A tripwire deters attack precisely because crossing it guarantees escalation. And escalation turns territory into target. From Washington's perspective, this is strategic necessity. A forward partner strengthens regional stability. It complicates any attempt at dominance. From Manila's perspective, the calculation is more painful. Security now comes with visibility. Visibility comes with vulnerability. And neutrality becomes implausible. China understands this perfectly. Its response does not mirror American deployments. It doesn't need to. Beijing applies pressure differently, through economics, regulation, access, and delay. Trade flows tighten unexpectedly. Tourism shifts quietly elsewhere. Exports face mysterious holdups. Nothing announced, nothing dramatic. Just enough friction to remind ordinary people that geopolitical alignment has daily consequences. This is pressure that seeps rather than strikes. It doesn't explode, it exhausts. The message is subtle but constant. Partnership has benefits. Resistance has costs. Between America's promise of protection and China's leverage of proximity, the Philippines finds its autonomy narrowing. Decisions that once felt sovereign now feel reactive. Allowing a patrol, hosting a drill, running a resupply mission, each move sends signals far beyond Manila. Each choice feeds a larger confrontation it did not design. The irony is sharp. The country that once forced foreign forces out now invites them back, because the alternative feels worse. History didn't repeat itself, it reversed itself. And just when it seems this is a uniquely Philippine problem, the camera pulls back, revealing a pattern that could redraw the entire region. Most people never hear this next part, and that's the real danger. What's happening to the Philippines is not an exception. It's a prototype. Across Southeast Asia, capitals are watching closely. Some quietly reinforce coast guards, others deepen security dialogues. All take notes. Because the lesson is brutally clear, proximity to power limits choice. Regional organizations built on neutrality struggle to function when members face different levels of pressure. Consensus fractures when survival calculations diverge. One by one, states are nudged, not pushed, toward alignment, not through ideology, through arithmetic. Security needs minus economic dependence equals inevitable compromise. This is how spheres of influence are rebuilt in the modern era. No declarations, no treaties carved in stone, just cumulative decisions that close doors behind you. In this environment, the Philippines becomes something larger than itself. It becomes proof. Proof that strategic ambiguity has an expiration date. Proof that middle powers eventually inherit the consequences of great power rivalry. Proof that geography still decides fate. In any contest between a land-based power seeking to control its perimeter and a maritime power determined to keep lanes open, neutrality erodes first at the edges. Island chains matter, straits matter, ports matter. And nations sitting atop them are forced into roles they did not audition for. The question is no longer whether the Philippines will choose. The choice is already being narrowed by events beyond its control. The real question is how many other countries believe they have time until they suddenly don't. Because when the next crisis ignites, it won't start with declarations. It will start with routine patrols, with temporary restrictions, with defensive deployments. By the time the stakes are obvious, the options will already be gone. The Philippines is not just a country under pressure, it is an early warning system. A signal flare rising quietly over contested waters. Power rarely announces itself. It tightens gradually, invisibly, until movement becomes impossible. The story unfolding west of Luzon is not about islands. It's about a world where choice itself is becoming a luxury. If you want to understand how global systems shape everyday reality, this is what we do here. This is Economic Tales. And the next story may already be forming just offshore.